Hello everyone, and welcome to our second lesson within the series around customizing the mobile interface for Sage CRM. We're going to be looking today at the way in which we can carry out customization of mobile screens, so codelessly adding in new mobile screens. And this lesson is part of a series that will gradually introduce you across all of the concepts that you need for the mobile interface. And we're going to see that we'll draw on materials that we looked at yesterday, and we'll also be looking at ahead some foreshadowing over ideas around what we can use in terms of automation and automatic behavior as we go through. So what are we looking at today? Well, this topic today is all for the system administrator, making sure that we're looking at the information that you need to be able to understand how the interface for mobile devices can be extended with new lists and new screens to support new entities being brought into the mobile theme. I'm going to start by actually looking back inside the main desktop interface and remind you of a particular screen that exists there. So this is an example of a screen that you may find useful. You may think, I want to bring that into the mobile interface. This happens to be the contact screen, and it shows for a user a customized list of contacts that a user may want to synchronize with another system. Now, in this example, I'm logged on as the user Susan May, and you can see that she has 14 contacts that she works with regularly. Now, I'm going to customize the mobile interface to use this list, and we're going to see some limitations, and as well as some of the easy ways in which we can do things. So if we step on, to be able to create the structures, I need to switch over into an administrator account. And you can see that I've done that. I've actually switched over, and I'm looking at now the customization screens. The table that holds the data I want is user contacts, and that's a secondary entity. So I need to look down away from the main top level entities to look down at the secondary entities. And here you can see that it's a table. It's not a particularly complex table, and its job is simply to hold the choices for individual users as to what is their main contacts that they're dealing with. So here I'm looking at the customization area. I'm looking at the fields for the table. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow a pattern that I want you to understand in order to be able to effectively carry out mobile customizations. So this is the general pattern that we need to follow if we're going to be able to add a custom list into the mobile interface. We start by needing to check that the view has all of the context information that we'll need. If a list is to allow us to jump to a contact, then we need to have the ID of that contact in the list. And the view needs to therefore have also the primary key information it would need, plus the fields that are referenced within security policies. And we're going to see that that's actually pretty important for the particular list that I'm trying to do. So we have this idea that we need to have a check the list, check the view. Then we'll have to start thinking about the mobile list that we want to use, the version of the list definition. We need to then look at its hyperlinks. We then need to wrap the whole of that structure within a block, and then update the interface about how a menu or a button is going to call that particular block. So here you can see that I've come across to look at the views, and you can see that there is a view called user contacts list, or rather I should say is that I'm looking at a list that is called user contacts list. Now, very important to keep reminding ourselves that whenever we're looking to customize anything within the interface, we need to make sure that we're dealing with the CRM mobile theme. It's too easy to get lost and accidentally think you're dealing with the desktop, or think you're dealing with the mobile, but you're actually working with the desktop theme. Now, if I click to have a look underneath this particular list definition, you can see here that the view that the list definition uses is v user contacts. Now, if I look at the definition of that view, well, we can see it's a little complex, but the good news is that it has all of the information that we would need. So this view is good because we know that it's got a reference across for that particular contact to any company that's involved, the person that's involved in the contact. It's got company information, person information contained in there, as well as the security territory information that would be necessary for any jump across to that entity. So we've got the information about the company security territory, person security territory, etc. So all of these are the fields that you are referenced within security policies. If this is a bit strange to you, if you don't know about those security policies, there are blog articles and training videos that cover the importance of the security territories on the community hub, and also on the support and training YouTube channel. So the previous lesson has already been recorded and is available on the start of a new course on the YouTube channel called Sage CRM Customizing the Mobile Theme. So here we've got all of the fields that we need, and I can click in to start thinking about what I need to do. Now, I'm following this flow of actions, so I can always come back to look at this list in a little bit, but I'm making sure that I am viewing and thinking of where I'm going. So I've looked at the idea of the view. I need to look at the mobile list now, make sure it's behaving in the way that I want it to, so I can come down and look here at the definition of the list. Now, do you notice how I've defined the hyperlink that we're looking at? You might not see it particularly well here, but it is run tab group, and let's see if we can zoom in on this. So the hyperlink that I'm using from a list into an entity is run tab group. Now, this is the setting of the tab that will change the context to the entity. So the tab group is associated with a particular entity. In this case, it might well be person. As you can see, the idea is that we click on something, we change over into the person context. This is the mobile theme version that we're interested in, and we can, if we switch across there, the person tab, we know that we're also passing then the person ID. So this is the primary key that we're using, and the destination for the company as well. Now, this is our flow. We've now looked at our mobile list. We've checked the hyperlink for our list. And so we now need to wrap our list with a block. So I've come into where I would start to define a block. And when you come to define a block, there are a number of different types of block that you can use to create a wrapper around the different objects, whether they're a screen or a list. And so the main ones used in the mobile interface are containers. You'll see one of those in a moment. An entry group, which is for an individual screen, and a list block. So the two main ones, though, even within that, are containers and lists, list blocks. You've got other blocks that really are relevant when it comes to building classic ASP pages, or we might come across other types as we extend this course. So I've used the idea that I'm dealing with a list block. The value for the use group is the list that we've just examined, which is the user contact list, and I've given it a name, which is user contact list block. By keep using the word block, it becomes quite simple for me to be able to identify what are the items that I may want to use inside the menus. It becomes part of a sort of an obvious choice. So I've wrapped this, and if I go and examine what I've done, we can see that this is indeed calling the block that we want, that we've created. We don't have to worry about titles or anything like that, really. But here we might want to think about whether we're calling a new button, etc. Now, I'm not at this stage going to think about a new button. I'll do that in a moment when we look at a development of this idea. But I'm going to now think about how we call this from our menu. So if I switch back into where I've got my administrator, so I'm looking here at administration advanced customization. To add the contacts list to the mobile interface, I need to add it to one of the main structural menus. So either if I was doing find, or if I was doing whatever the structures are, in this case, I want to add it to the My CRM menu. Menus are all tab groups inside Sage CRM, and the main structural ones are actually called system menus, and you'll find them underneath advanced customization. So these are things which are out of the specific context of an existing entity like a company or a person. So this is where we are dealing with the first screen that you arrive on. So I've come into the system menus area, and you can see in here that there is a set of menus all doing different things, and make sure that you are looking at the Sage CRM mobile theme version of these, because the menus differ whether you're dealing with the desktop or the mobile. And I need to make sure that I'm going in for the one that is called users. So make sure that you're looking at the users version of that. So if I go into that, you can see that I've come into that, and you'll notice that at this point I've added my option in, but do you notice that I'm using the action run block? So I'm now using run block in order to run the page that I want, but I'm using the block that we've created, the wrapper block, user contact list block, and you notice that I've tried to be clever by putting in a SQL clause. Now we're going to see that we're going to hit a gotcha with this, but the way in which the SQL clause works is that this is the field that will link the current context to the underlying items within the list. So if we're looking at a list of user contacts, and we're in the context of the user who has logged on, because we're always in the context of the user that has logged on, we need to have something that will take the main context, which is the user ID, and tie it to the list of objects underneath. So we basically need the foreign key to be listed here. So in this case, we are linking user_user ID, which is the main context, and we need to say what field that main context deals with inside the underlying record. That happens to be user CNT or UCNT underscore user ID, and that would be theoretically the link. But that won't work in our case, because that concept only applies to records that are primary entities. It will only filter the records if user contacts is a primary entity, and it isn't. So instead of, it won't error, it will just, that setting will just be ignored. And what we will find instead is inside the interface, that contacts option, my menu, has appeared. So after all of the metadata that I've created and changed, my mobile interface will reflect the change that I've made, so we can see that my contacts tab appears within the My CRM menu in the mobile interface. We can see that it's listing out items from the list, representing the column neatly, but it is not filtering by the user. Now, to do that, in order for it to work, we would have to promote that secondary entity into being a primary entity. And at this point, I will refer you to blog articles on the Community Hub, which discuss exactly that point. How do we uplift a secondary entity into a primary entity? But does it work? Does that hyperlinking work? So if I follow through, what happens? Now you'll find that it does work, even though the list is not filtered and it's pulling back the full set of data across all of the users, not just the 14 that that Susan May, our demo user, was interested in, but she's seeing everything. Now, what we see is that the list does behave in the way that we want it to. So I can click here and it's jumping to the correct person, and it's got the person tab at the top of the page. So what we've done is we've managed to demonstrate that by following the flow of actions, we have been able to get a secondary entity to display a list and have functioning hyperlinks that will change the context when those links are followed. But we still need to have the list filter by context, and we can understand how that actually works if we go and look now at a full primary entity, which happens to be a custom entity within the system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at how we can add a custom entity to the interface. Now, this is making some assumptions about your knowledge. It's making some assumptions that you will have gone through the process of adding a custom entity into Sage CRM using the advanced customization wizard. Now you can see here that I'm looking in at the main desktop interface, and you can see I have created an entity called project. I used the wizard to do that. And if we actually look elsewhere inside as we go through some of the examples, you'll be able to see and infer some of the choices that I made when I created that entity using the wizard. But let's step through and see what we have to do. Now we're going to follow the same steps to bring the entity into the user menu. So we're going to go through these same steps. We're going to make sure that we have a view that will do the job. We're going to then look at the idea of building a mobile list, a mobile optimized list. We'll then check the hyperlinks that we're using. We'll wrap everything in a block, and then we'll update the tab to call that with and pass in the contextual information that can be used for filtering. So the project entity is a primary entity. It's governed by security, and it appears at the top level of the customization page. We can see in the main panel on the screen, it's there at the bottom left of the main panel, just above the secondary entities. If we look at the fields that are contained within this, we can see that well, the wizard can allow us to build relationships in different ways, but if you see that we have got a lookup field for the company and a lookup field for the person, we can infer that when the wizard was run to create the project entity, it was created as a child of company and person. So a project is owned by a company and is owned by a person. We can, now that we know this, we can start to think about how that all relates together and make sure that we understand that whether our views, if we look at a project entity, do we have the right settings, because it's also a child of the company and the person. And they are entities governed by security as well. So I have to consider the view that we're going to use. Now, the advanced customization wizard only creates by default a single view, which is called v mail merge project. So what I've done is I've started to create another couple of views to support customization. So this is the flow of actions again. Everything is based on the views that we're using. So if we go back into that view, or one of these views, we can see here that I'm using vlist project. You can see that my view contains the key information and the security information we're going to need. If you access a record that is linked to other records, you must include all of the security information for those linked records. So I have to have all of the necessary security fields for the company and the person, as well as the project if I'm joining onto those entities. Now, the wizard did create a grid for me called project user grid, but it only uses the project table as its basic sense. So I have to go in, I had to go in and change that. So I changed this to use the view that I created, vlist project. That suddenly makes that much richer, and I know that I won't run into any problems with that. Now, there's only in the list, interestingly, visibly, there's only one field included in the list. That's all I need to demonstrate the point, but I have added a hyperlink. And this will jump across to the project tab group, changing the context and passing the primary key value for the entity. So I'm interested in being able to pull out the list of projects that I am involved in and then be able to click on them and hyperlink there. So I've made sure that how I've hyperlinked with the Run tab group to the tab group name, which provides the context, and the target record is defined by the custom ID field that I use. I need to wrap the list in a block, and I created one here called project list block. And you can see that the block is just like the user contacts example. It's very simple. Please note that I have a show new button set to yes, and the project is confirmed to invoke the project new entry block. So we know what that button is going to do. Now, once I've saved the block, I now need to call it from a system menu. Again, I'm following this flow of actions. And in this case, I'm updating the user my CRM menu. So this is the same menu that I altered before. So the user menu is calling the project list block, and I'm using proj_project ID as the key value. Now I'm confident the filtering will work because this is a primary entity. And what we can see is that the project is passed across, and I have filtered the list of projects. Do you notice in the top corner, top right-hand corner, I've got a new button. Now that new button is calling a block which was set up in a very similar way, project new entry block. You can see that this is a screen that has got web picker fields. It's got a mandatory field. You've got drop-down lists. So these are what you need to think through is the minimum information that a mobile user needs to enter. And if we see where this block was defined, it had seen that I've got underneath blocks, there is a new entry block underneath the block area of customization. This happens to be a container block, and a container block allows us to bring several blocks together on the same page. So it's different from the types that we've looked at so far, but I'm only using one block within the container, but I'm still wrapping that with one block. So you can see that it could contain multiple blocks. And if you look around the other entities like opportunity, you'll see how the container blocks are used. But I've created a very simple container with one block that I'm going to use to allow me to edit and insert this record. Now you can see in its action when it's being used that I can look up companies. I can then fill in the mandatory fields as I need. And once I click on the save button, lots of different behavior can be triggered. Now I'm going to be talking about this I'm going to be talking about this in the next lesson about automated behavior. But you notice how a hello world message has been triggered and been popped up as the record has been inserted. Now this was triggered by a table level script, and this could also have triggered other automated behavior driven by perhaps validation rules or by an escalation rule. But it is showing you that as you make changes through the mobile device, you are able to pass out changes throughout the entire system. So this is demonstrating the triggering point for that behavior. Now you can see in the project that I've created, it's listed in the main interface. So this is the one that I've just added in. So it's all done and it's all there. This shows that I can create through the mobile and it will arrive into the desktop experience straight away. And you can see that there on the right hand side, a tiny little button talking about how we can update the status. So there's a workflow ready to be followed once the user is back at the office. Now, explicit user-driven workflow like that can be followed on the mobile theme, but it can't be followed, can't be used. We can't use user-driven behavior on the mobile optimized theme. So if you're using a tablet and you want to use full workflow, then you would use the desktop theme on the tablet. But on a phone, we're constrained by really the size of the device, and we're liberated as well to do a lot through the use of all of the automated processes that we can use, like quick escalation rules, quick notifications, full escalation rules, and with our behavior here of table level scripting. Now we're constrained, as I said, by the device, but we have access to the automated behavior. So this is a screenshot of right from an iPhone. You can see it being used. I'm entering a new project again. This is our custom entity that I had created, and I can enter all the details and I can save now, and you can see that the automated behavior is triggering. If I click through, I can set, after saving, I can now start to edit this and I can change it. You can see that I've changed it from phone to update, and I can save this. But in this time, there's no automated behavior because I have explicitly said that I am only doing it as the record is initially inserted. And if you update, I could drive other behavior or not have any behavior, whatever I want to do. And we'll look at that in the next course. So what are we going to do from here? Now, we've got things to build on from today and yesterday's lessons. We are going to take the idea of the automated behavior and how that interacts with the mobile interface, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. We're going to then set the scene for when we're using device features like call out, initiating a telephone call, or sending an email from an email address, and how that fits in to the integration that we offer with Exchange and with Outlook. And we'll also be thinking in terms as well in the last lesson about the way in which we can design reports that are optimized to be able to run within a mobile interface. But this is what we've got done today. Let's have a look if we've got any questions. Thank you so much, everyone. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow when we continue our exploration of customizing the mobile interface. Bye-bye.